What's up, guys? Welcome back to Simply FPL. It's only Tuesday, but we've got a double game week coming up, so I thought I'd put a video up specifically talking about the double game week. And more importantly, the reason for this video is I think a lot of the questions I've kind of been asked about how to approach this double game week, the more I look at it, the more I think there's like this double game week feels like it's a bit of a red herring. Like I think there's more chance people lose points than they do actually gain points based on, I guess, the fixtures coming up. So going to have a quick chat about that. Just specifically, there's a few points which I've kind of looked at that's kind of helped me arrive at this decision. So first of all, I think this double game week, for those of you that don't know the fixtures or the teams involved in it, Burnley, Fulham, Man City, Everton. So I think it's going to be a low scoring double game week. So like none of the four teams have like amazing fixtures. Like I wouldn't think any of those four teams are going to absolutely hammer both teams in their double game week. So that's always a worry, because in the last double game week where you see teams like Man City having two teams they can put 4 or 5 past, that's where you really want to kind of attack it, because you know the risk, which is quite small, versus the reward could be 15, 20 points. Like you saw, obviously, John Stones got 27 points in that double game week. It's just not going to happen in this one. So look, we've all got 3 City players already generally, so I'm really referring to the other 3 teams, the players we're kind of looking to maybe bring in. I don't think Everton, Fulham or Burnley are going to have too many players that are going to hit the double digits. So that's one thing worth noting. Also, the teams in those double game weeks. So again, ignore City, because obviously we've all got 3 City players generally. So I don't need to kind of try and persuade anyone to not bring in more City players, because we're all pretty much loaded up on those. And if you're not, feel free to bring in the maximum. That does make sense. But specifically the other 3 teams, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. Like the 3 teams, they're not full of players that are getting loads of points each week. Like looking at Fulham, I think their highest scoring players still not hit 60 points. So to kind of bring these players in on a transfer where it may also be for a hit, it feels like a risk. Like I'm not sure we want to keep these players even for the double game week, but yet alone long term. To add to that, a lot of the single game week teams, they've got quite good fixtures. So again, in a moment, we'll have a look at that. But there's a few teams that I think the players in those teams with 1 game week could easily outscore the likes of Burnley and Fulham's players that have 2 game weeks. So again, another thing to consider. On top of that, Fulham, Burnley and Everton, none of the teams have really good fixtures coming up afterwards. So if you bring in their players, you're going to have to cope with their players kind of next week, the week after, whilst you're trying to bring them out. So although you may benefit in this double game week for holding them, which I'm not even sure you will, you'll almost certainly lose out kind of going forward. So that's another thing to kind of consider. And if you needed another reason why it might not be a good idea to just load up on Fulham, Burnley and Everton players, there's another double game week next week. Then there's going to be a huge double game week in game week 26, which we'll know more about after the FA Cup games today and tomorrow. So you don't want to kind of mess your team up for this game week and then all of a sudden like not make anywhere near as many points in future double game weeks. So those are the 5 kind of points I wanted to make. We're going to go into it in a bit more detail. One thing I would say is everything I say would not count if you're planning on using a free hit. I might put up a video specific to a free hit team actually tomorrow or the next day. So if you're doing a free hit, obviously you can potentially gamble on the players you wouldn't normally keep, because you don't have the added risk of keeping them kind of for the game after and the game after that. So we're specifically today on this video talking about managers who are considering making permanent transfers into their team, and specifically managers that are looking to take 4-point hits to make those transfers. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So first of all, the one thing that definitely needs to be considered is if you load up on double game week players, are they going to outscore your current players? So I've highlighted a few fixtures here. So Aston Villa, the chances of them keeping a clean sheet against Brighton are quite high. Brighton are not scoring many goals. So on the goalkeeper side, are we really going to want to substitute the likes of Martinez or the Mings or like any of the other defenders in the Villa team? Like they could easily get a clean sheet, get 7, 8, 9 points, and again, outscore what any of Fulham's defenders would be in the double game week, for instance. Similarly to United against West Brom. Looking at how many goals they can potentially score against West Brom and also the potential for a clean sheet, I think if you've got a Fernandes, a Rashford, Wan-Bissaka's of the world, the De Gea's, like, again, there's a good chance they outscore any of the double game week players. Moving on to West Ham, I'd imagine most of us have West Ham players. I've got 3 myself. So the likes of Antonio, Souček, Soufal, Bowen, all of these lads against a Sheffield United, like, they could easily kind of hit the double digits by themselves. And then obviously Chelsea as well. So we don't hold as many Chelsea players generally, I'd imagine. But if you've got kind of their defenders, certainly the Mendy's in goal, it's just guys that we're not going to want to substitute for anyone that's not City players. So that's the first thing to bear in mind. And again, we'll look at my team actually in a moment or two, just so you can see kind of like there's not really any player I want to get rid of for this double game week that I don't already have. So let's look at the specific teams. Now, I'm not going to look at Man City because I've said it a few times already. I'm not classing Man City as the team we want to avoid. Like, I've already got 3 Man City players. I'd imagine most people do. If you don't, you're probably going to want to bring in the second or third Man City player because obviously like they're one of the best teams in the league at the moment. So we're not really counting them. But we're assuming that people watching this video are not questioning whether to bring in Man City players. The question is, do we bring more Everton, Burnley and Fulham players in? So, here's Everton. So, first of all, their double game week. Fulham at home, like, it could be a tricky fixture. Fulham have kind of a bit hit or miss the last few weeks. So, look, we'll say that Fulham at home is a good fixture. They've then got to play Manchester City. So, are Everton really going to, like, win 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 against a Man City team? I'm not sure. I think if they score a goal, it's likely to be 1. Like, I don't think they're going to score multiple goals against City. And are they really going to keep a clean sheet? I don't think so. So in terms of the double game week, I'm not sure it's worth taking. Like, you might consider making 1 transfer to bring a player in, but if it's free. But I definitely don't see the value in taking a 4-point hit to bring any Everton player in. Looking at then the future game weeks, they've got Liverpool, Southampton and Chelsea afterwards. So we don't know what the double game weeks will be. It's not nailed on for game week 26. But looking at those fixtures, I'm not sure Everton are going to get too many fantasy football points in their players. So again, that's another reason why you potentially won't want to bring in too many of them. And looking at the individual players, apart from Luka Digne, James Rodriguez, and obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewandowski, like, you're not going to want to bring in any of their other players. So specifically to Digne, he may get a clean sheet, but as we've seen, Everton are not going to keep many clean sheets. So we can kind of rule him out. Now, I've got him in my team. But if I didn't have him right now, I probably wouldn't be looking to bring him in. James Rodriguez, again, against Fulham, maybe he'll get an attack in return. But I just, like, it feels like too much of a gamble to bring him in. Like, I don't want James Rodriguez for the next 5 fixtures. I think his points per game is going to be terrible. And you've got to also factor in the fact that midfield this season for FPL is the best value. Like, I'm looking at my midfield right now and thinking I don't want to get rid of any of those players for any Everton, Burnley or Fulham player. So have we really got space to fit a James Rodriguez in? I'm not sure. And obviously Calvert-Lewin. So I know obviously he scored there against United. You could argue he's hitting a little bit of form. Maybe he's worth bringing in. If I was going to bring one player in right now from Everton, it would be Calvert-Lewin. But again, when we look at the value strikers, we've got the Watkinses, we've got the Bamfords, obviously the Antonios. We're kind of considering bringing in Harry Kane for game week 26. Is there really space for Calvert-Lewin in there? I'm not sure. So for me, I've got Luka Digne already, but I'm not even considering bringing in James Rodriguez or Calvert-Lewin or any other Everton player. Moving down then. Burnley. So looking at their fixtures, it doesn't look too bad. So their double game week. Biggest problem with Burnley is we can't even look at their midfielders or attacks because I don't think they're going to score many goals. If we look at their next 6 fixtures, you could argue they may score some goals against Fulham and West Brom, but I'd imagine they're going to struggle against Tottenham, Arsenal and Everton. So for the double game week, it's maybe worth bringing in a player or two, and we'll look in a moment and see that I have actually brought in Loughton there. So I have actually brought in a Burnley player on my free transfer, but I'm not sure it's worth loading up on them. So in terms of midfielders and attackers, the only guy I'd consider bringing in is Wood. But he's injured, so he may play, but we don't know yet. So assuming he's injured, I've got no interest in bringing in any midfielder or striker. In terms of goalkeepers, I'm not going to get rid of Martinez for Pope. I'm just not. Now, I can understand why people might consider bringing him in. Like, the double game week for Burnley's defence is probably the best place to kind of attack. So if you are considering bringing in one, I'd probably bring in either Pope, or if it was me, I'd bring in either me, Tarkowski, or Loughton. So I brought in Loughton because I don't think the extra 0.5 or 0.8 million is worth it, because like me and Tarkowski, they just don't get enough attacking returns for me to consider having a premium kind of defender. So yeah, if I was going to bring in any players, I'd bring in a maximum of one Burnley player, and it would be probably a defender. And then finally, Fulham. I think the biggest mistake people may make this week is bringing in Fulham players kind of for the double game week. First of all, I'm not sure the away games against Everton and Burnley are that great. I don't think that they're going to keep a clean sheet against either of those teams. Like, maybe against Burnley, but I just don't see it against Everton. So when we're looking at bringing in either Areola or a defender, I'm not sure the clean sheet points are there. After that, Sheffield United have hit a bit of form. They're kind of scoring in a lot of their games now. And then obviously they've got Liverpool, Man City, and then also an away fixture to Palace. So I'm just not sure they're going to keep too many clean sheets in the next 5 or 6 fixtures. Looking at their team then, I don't want to bring in their striker. Their midfielders, it's limited to Lookman and Cavallero. Again, I'm looking at my own midfield, and I just don't see where I'm going to bring those two lads in, because I'm going to have to get rid of a really good midfielder for it. And I don't want to keep hold of a Lookman or a Cavallero. So yeah, I'm kind of saying that I'm not even considering bringing in a Fulham player. So yeah, that's the 3 teams in a bit more detail. Looking at my own team then, so this is how I'm set up. So I'm probably only going to have the 5 players with the double game week. Now, 3 of them are obviously City. So as we said, everyone was pretty much going to have 3. So having 5 is not too much more than that. So I've got Luca Digne already, and I've brought in Loughton because I wanted to get rid of Dyer anyway. If I didn't have Dyer, I don't think I would have even made a sub to bring in a Burnley defender. And just for full disclosure, I have 2 free transfers this week, so I've only made 1. I'm actually going to roll my transfer over. I want to get to game week 26 with at least 2 transfers. So next week, I may bring in 2 Leeds players. I've not decided. But certainly for this game week, I'm not considering doing anything more with that team right there. I've made the 1 transfer to bring Loughton in, and I'm happy with the 5 double game week players. And if you look at my single game week players, Martinez, very good chance of a clean sheet. Soufal, great chance of a clean sheet, and also maybe he'll get an attack in return. And that midfield, like Fernandes at West Brom, Salah at Leicester, and obviously Grealish at Brighton. I don't, like, you could potentially argue you might bring Grealish out, but I still don't want to do that. So yeah, I don't want to bring in any other double game week player for those 3 lads. And then Antonio up front at home to Sheffield United. Like, I might, you consider bringing in a Calvert-Lewin, but yeah, I'm just not going to do it. So that's pretty much that. I appreciate that was obviously 14 minutes of me just talking quite a lot. So I hope you got some value out of that. But just to sum up the cliff notes, I think that this double game week is a bit of a red herring, and that we shouldn't panic to try and bring in loads of players. Probably not worth bringing in players at a -4 hit. And also it wouldn't surprise me if it's a low scoring game week. So you might see that lads who have brought in 9 or 10 double game week players maybe not, I don't think they will, but maybe they'll have a better game week this week. But then next week and the week after, I think they're probably going to regret it when they now have a team full of essentially duds as we come up to our double game week in 26. So that's what I've got to say on that. I'll probably have a free hit video up maybe tomorrow or the next day. And if there's any other videos that people want me to kind of do, drop it in the comments. I'm always happy to talk about it for 10-15 minutes. And yeah, I'll respond to as many comments as I can as usual. And we'll see you in the next video.